Have you missed it? Like, do you guys think, I should have got in on Bitcoin?
I don't spend long
5 years ago.
Bitcoin.
Bitcoin is something that certainly a lot of people think, is going to rise as an alternative currency.
The Australian Bitcoin Podcast, presented by HardBlock.
It's not a currency, it's not money. I don't understand it.
G'day, folks. How's it going? Welcome to the Australian Bitcoin Podcast, episode 111, where we bring you the best of the Bitcoin signal from a much-needed Australian perspective. And I'm not alone, joined as always by my co-host, Mike. And today we're joined by a very special guest, creator of TAFE BTC, a course that will, I made that name up, a course that will get you up to speed with everything you need to know about the future of our money. We've got Greg. G'day, mate. How are you, mate? Welcome to the Australian Bitcoin Podcast.
Thank you very much for having me, guys. Super pumped to be on with you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We'll get to TAFE BTC towards the end of the show, but it's a pretty exciting and progressive, in the old legacy sense of the word, course that you've created, and blowing my mind is that it's happening in one of the more draconian states we have in Australia.
to put it lightly.
I was going to say communism, but I won't. Not yet. It's too early in the pod. So current price of Bitcoin is $106,074 dues, which translate to around 75,587 US cuck bucks. It's been ranging. We'll get to that in a sec. Let me see. Block height, very important. 947,245, and the hash rate, we dipped below a Zeta hash once again. 946.2 currently recorded on Clark Moody's dashboard. 946.2 exahash per second. So the Bitcoin price, we've been ranging in this sort of mid $100,000 mark. We got up as high as 111, I think, late last week, over the weekend. And for comparison, the last time we were talking and recording, it was 104. So we're up on that, which is nice. It's a little bit modest, nothing too crazy. A year ago, what's interesting, I think, is we were sitting at 148,000, and we all felt a lot wealthier, I suppose, potentially. But on the network side, there's about 20 million. We've only got 90, like less than 4%. Less than 5% of the Bitcoin that will ever be issued is in existence currently and circulating all around the world. And I don't know. It feels like something's going to happen. It is Bitcoin conference week though. So inevitably the price will fall, and that's pretty much what we've seen. The Bitcoin 2026 conference wrapped up in Las Vegas today, local time. So US was like Wednesday on the 29th of April. And the overall vibe, basically Bitcoin is deep inside the institutional and political machine. And, is that exciting? Is it horrifying? It's probably both, depending on your cypherpunk position. But we had SEC Chair Paul Atkins appearing at the conference, and that was interesting. He did a fireside chat, and it was one of the first times that an SEC chair had attended the Bitcoin conference. Mike, have you been watching any of the live stream?
I haven't been watching too much. I've been kind of just scanning the cliff notes and the Twitter sphere rather than actually watching any of the live stream. It's like, who has time to watch live streams anymore these days? But it's definitely seems to be the conference of the Feds. FedCon 2026 is what it seems more apt a title for this conference. With they had Kash Patel, they had the as he said, the chairman, and a bunch of other federale types drop in. which is, I don't know, to me it feels a bit like parlaying with the enemy in many ways. And it makes me think of, there's that old adage, which is like, first they laugh at you, then they, what is it? They laugh at you, they insult you, then they fight you, then you win. It feels like we've gone from they're fighting us to then now they're joining us. But it doesn't exactly feel like winning though, which is my concern. It feels like they're joining us.
It feels like co-option.
Yeah,
like it feels like everybody's competing now to define what Bitcoin is, and I mean, I've been saying this a long time. Eventually Bitcoin will grow up, and the Beatles will leave the Cavern Club, and it will no longer be, Liverpool's little secret. It's on the Ed Sullivan Show now, and it's broadcasted to millions all across, at least America, but certainly now the world. I think the thing about the BTC conference, and I haven't watched a heck of a lot, and I've been actually surprised at the lack of signal and the lack of announceables. It's almost like they learned their lesson of the last few years, where it was a showcase for making announcements about announcements based on announcements that they were going to make a product at some point. And I think there hasn't been a lot of that. And so I found, the signal's not been too strong.
Well, for comparison, last year we got the announcement of Square accepting Bitcoin payments in America. That was announced last time they had their big conference round, and that's since launched and rolled out, and it's gone pretty well so far. And fingers crossed they bring that here to Australia soon. But yeah, this year there hasn't been any massive announcements. It's really just like I said, it's just been feds coming out and groveling. There was a policymaker in the US talking about trying to reassure developers that don't worry, don't look at the Samurai case, don't look at the Tornado Cash case. Keep developing, keep coding. We're not going to arrest you. Don't worry. But again, as far as I'm concerned, you can't trust a politician as far as you throw them. So we'll see if they hold to that promise. But they did make an assurance that, yes, continue to make the digital infrastructure that's going to propel the US into the future. We promise we won't arrest you. Big doubt on whether they'll hold to that. The other thing you mentioned before is, it's almost like clockwork that the Bitcoin price has a tumble during and after these big conferences. And it made me think of, I saw someone post a graph that charts the other thing which always causes a Bitcoin price tumble, which is a new Fed chair coming in. And so we've got Kevin Warsh coming in next month to take over from Jerome Powell. And yeah, I've seen this graph, and it does like clockwork when who was it, Yellen and then Powell. Each time they get appointed or reappointed, in the case of Powell, it's the start of a bear market. Now we're already kind of halfway through a bear market. Fingers crossed, it's not going to go much longer. But it would suck if this new Fed chair coming in, Warshy, triggers another dip. Please no.
Warshy's young bloke. He's coming in to be the Fed chair. Yeah, hopefully this is progress. I wouldn't know Kevin from a bar of soap, but the days of, like, I've heard stories of when Yellen would come out and do her speech or her projections or whatever the heck that they do. I'm pretty sure they even did that today, but I'm not across it. But they would speculate on what kind of clothes she was going to wear, like what the color was. So if it was like purple, it might be a regal announcement. It might be kind of quite low time preference orientated. I would prefer to have my monetary policy set in stone in immutable code, capped at 21 million, and know that every 10 minutes a new block gets found thereabouts and issues a certain block reward according to which epoch we're in, and we can project that all the way out to 2140.
Yes,
That's where my monetary policy needs to go.
It does hit. It's an indictment on the fiat system that, like, only such a system like the fiat system that we're based on now is one that could be subject to the whims of, does the Fed chair wear a yellow tie or a purple tie? Or what specific words are they? Because it's true, you can go and find these boomer-esque financial analyst podcasts and internet shows where they are literally analyzing word for word what the Fed chair is saying and then interpreting that as how that'll impact the markets. And so it's like
And they think in the same breath
would do that.
how advanced they are relative to, say, like a Greek civilization, where they would go up to the Temple of Delphi and ask the old dudes that lived up there, like, what's going to happen. I mean, South Park ripped this off as well with the Wheel of Fortune chicken head show episode, whatever. Yeah, it's just bananas. Like, it really is archaic and silly. It's almost like having a person. They might as well come out in a wizard robe and do a seance or something to that effect. It really is just backwards and silly. Now, before we go too much deeper into some of the Bitcoin stuff, because it's definitely the Feds, the suits, Main Street, Wall Street, they've all entered the chat now. But before we get there, something that has been doing the rounds today in particular, which is, like, I'd like to say that I'm surprised, but I'm not. It's still annoying, and I'd like you to take it away, Mike. CGT discount changes, tax rules, they're not laws of nature, and yet here we are.
Yeah, so this kind of snuck up on many people, myself included. But for anyone out of the loop, we've got our new budget. Treasury's hard at work on that, coming out in 2 weeks, really. May 12th. That's when the new Australian budget will get. Hard at work. Hard at work prompting ChatGPT probably to produce it for them. But yeah, new budget on its way, and shock announcement in the last day is that they are looking to ditch the 50% capital gains discount and go back to the system that when it was replaced by the CGT discount system in 1999. And basically, rather than you just get your discount, it's reverting it, and now it's you use the cost base of the asset adjusted for inflation, and it's just added as regular income, and you just levy the tax as to your marginal tax rate. So it's just like regular income without the discount.
Let's be clear here. Capital gains tax, I mean, all taxation is theft, but let's be clear here. Capital gains is a tax on savings. Like,
Yep.
It's so difficult to save and get ahead anyway for everybody, right? It just, the boomers had a massive head start. And so when you finally do sell down and you've made a profit, you get taxed on that savings. I mean, it blows my mind that they will dismiss and deride Bitcoin as this risky thing, but they're more than happy to take any proceeds that come from a net positive sale. It's just, you can't talk out of both sides of the mouth. But of course, we are talking about my government here. But yes, so framing it as like a savings tax, and then you mentioned they were going to revert back to that 1999 sort of era. That is pretty much almost in line. A cynic might suggest that it's almost in line with the peak productive output of most of the boomers, and the notion that they had a lot of say disposable capital to invest in properties, apartments, houses, stocks, whatever.
Yes.
And they're going to take that away now?
Yeah, so basically
That they're aging out?
The boomers got to grow up in the biggest boom of economic prosperity in human history and Western history. And then in the sort of twilight years, as they're at the zenith of their capital accumulation ability, and they're starting to offload some of those assets to take profits and benefit from the CGT discount that was lovingly put in place for their prime years of 1999 until now. Now they're pulling up the ladder behind them, just like, what we always talk about with people, stuff everyone else. I'm pulling up the ladder behind me. No one else gets to benefit. Just as Gen X and millennials start to get into a position where they have accumulated capital, the scant amount remains that they have been able to accumulate, suddenly
crumbs.
the ladder gets pulled up, and they're not able to take advantage of that same discount that the boomer generation did. And what's worse is that we're about to go through this like a handover of wealth through inheritance as boomers do sort of shuttle off to the model coil, and Gen X and millennials do start to inherit things from them, properties, that sort of thing. Suddenly, if you want to offload those properties and enjoy the wealth, you're going to lose much more to tax than you would have previously. And so it's just yet again I mean, I can't speak too bad. I don't want to speak too badly of a whole generation of people.
Fiscally irresponsible few are making decisions for the financially responsible, the up and coming generation. They do realize that, and I know that it's just a management position, but they do realize that millennials vote, right? And we actually have the numbers more so than the boomers, and pretty sure there's more Gen Z or Gen Z coming through as well. Like, we do vote and we will remember. It's just whether or not the system has co-opted any of our Gen X, Y, and Z brethren.
Well, the thing is, I don't think there's going to be much of a voter upset from anyone other than the boomers, because the only people that are upset by this are people that already hold capital assets, which is predominantly boomers and some Gen X. There are a couple of millennials on the property lot, mostly owner-occupiers. There are a few people that play that property game. They have a big portfolio and they're going to be a bit miffed by this. But the overwhelming majority of millennials and younger are going to cheer this on, because they're like, great, well, I don't own any, I don't have a huge amount of savings in the form of capital investments. So great, awesome. I love this. Stuff the rich, eat the rich.
Eat the rich, tax the rich.
And then,
UBI for all.
Then they're going to inherit their parents' property and try to sell it off, and then lose, just an insane amount of it to tax. And then they're going to be like, oh, okay, maybe I shouldn't have voted for this.
The wild thing is it applies to super as well. That's our nest egg. That's the thing that we're...
I think I have read that super is still the way, because they haven't locked in some of the more egregious super things that they've talked about. So super is still a way to avoid some of this. Yes. Interesting.
Well, I mean, let's all not forget, it was only just recently that they were going to tax unrealized capital gains in super balances, and everybody kicked up a bit of a stink about that. I mean, these people are...
Just to wind back, I don't think we actually made it clear. To be clear, this capital gains tax thing, just to be perfectly clear, this is impacting Bitcoin. So if you hold Bitcoin, if this comes into play in the next 2 weeks, you will no longer qualify for the 50% capital gain tax discount on Bitcoin, shares, all these sorts of things. Property, yes.
Property.
Unless you're an owner-occupier. There are going to be some loopholes. They're talking about loopholes for certain kinds of landlords and some grandfathering in of this sort of thing, because they don't... I think what they're going to be careful of now is a lot of, again, boomers rushing to the gate to sell their properties, dump a whole bunch of properties on the market and cause prices to drop too much, which could cause a bit of a panic. But yeah, just to make it clear, in case anyone wasn't sure, this is impacting Bitcoin. The proposal is so that you'll no longer get the capital gains discount when you sell Bitcoin if you've held it for longer than 12 months. And right now, one of the only ways to avoid that is you buy Bitcoin through an SMSF. But yeah, right now the rules will be changed to, if you sell your Bitcoin, you'll pay capital gain based on your marginal tax rate, and no discount be applied.
Inflation makes this super messy as well, because it is eating the purchasing power. So you might have had a 20% asset rise, but how much purchasing power have you lost along the way? And we'll talk about inflation data in a sec. I just want to recommend a book to everybody, Hayek's Road to Serfdom. You can actually buy a Tuttle Twins version of it. It's more kid friendly, and I would actually start there. But this is kind of where we're going. We're going to traveling right along on the road to serfdom. But the inflation data that came out in the last 24 hours It's poised at 4.6, which is high by any measure because the mandate is to keep it at 2, right? And another failing of like your job. Like your job description is to keep it at 2, and you can't do that. You haven't done that for at least 6 years, 10 years, and then some. Why do you still exist? Why are you still like in a job? I don't understand. If I did my job incorrectly and had that much poor failure rate, I'd be short shrift as
because maybe it's just as planned. 4.6 is actually just as planned. It's the
4.6. This doesn't include though rents, which are currently sitting at 33% of income. Mortgages are greater than 45, and electricity is up by 25%.
That is the most ridiculous. The most ridiculous aspect of our economic analysis in this country is that CPI inflation data does not include cost of housing. Like that is insane to me. And you can go to the RBA website and look at their justification for that, and it's just the most nonsensical thing. It literally says something like, maybe we can put it in the show notes because it is like people should read this, and it says something like, because renting is an option, it's not included in the CPI, which is insane.
Oh my God.
That's saying, okay, well, you have a choice and you could just be homeless. You just be homeless. That's why we don't include in the CPI data. But yeah, I was looking
BCF,
at the ABC, and I've noticed in the last month, mainstream media has started reporting on things that people have been traditionally for the last few years had to be relegated to talking about it privately or on Twitter or whatever. They are talking more openly about certain things that people are pissed off about. And like right now, the ABC published a thing on their page, which is just this really big visual of how much more expensive things are over the last 5 years since COVID, this sort of thing, in line with the inflation print of 4.6%. And they list all these different products and show how much prices increased since X number of years ago. Electricity is up 25% 1 year ago, fuel 24%, lamb 15%. But the TLDR is that since the end of COVID, or sort of the tail end of COVID 2023, everything is 25% more expensive. That's like the kind of the bottom line. On average, prices for everything have jumped about 25% since the end of COVID.
Cheese is cheaper. Cheese apparently is
cheese. For some reason, cheese is cheaper. Load up on cheese.
Is cheaper. Yeah. Is cheese a store of value? I don't know.
If you get the Parmigiano, maybe the good stuff,
that's a good point.
The animal rennet stuff. That's what you need.
I mean, where are my Chapwood bros? Like, true inflation is around 11%. We all know this. Like, I don't know. Honestly, yes, Bitcoin fixes this. Let's sort it out. Everybody that is listening to this right now, smash buy with your HardBlock account. $10 worth of Bitcoin, just start smash buying some more Bitcoin, because this should really rile you up. This is the reason, one of the key core reasons why anyone would consider buying Bitcoin and owning it, because it's just flat out theft. It's the inflation tax, capital gains savings tax. Like they're just robber barons, to use a Rothbardian line.
You're looking for a hassle-free way to buy Bitcoin in Australia? HardBlock makes it easy. As Australia's longest-running Bitcoin-only exchange, their mission is to help Australians simply and easily buy Bitcoin and take it into self-custody. There are no deposit or trading fees, just a clear 2.4% spread. That covers operating costs, so you always know exactly what you're paying. Withdrawals are just $1.18 or as low as 400 sats with AutoSend. There are no hidden charges, no surprises, just a fast, reliable, and easy way to stack sats with total transparency. Get started today at hardblock.com.au. Bitcoin made easy for Aussies.
All right. Tim Draper, actually, at the Bitcoin conference, he basically said what I was just saying there. You should be scared if you don't own Bitcoin. That was a quote from billionaire investor Tim Draper. He's obviously never been shy about Bitcoin. He's been one of the most vocal supporters, particularly of that billionaire class. And this week at the Bitcoin conference, he said that people should be more scared of not owning Bitcoin than owning it. And obviously that doesn't, mean that we just sort of go up in a straight line and we we bypass all the volatility. But I guess his broader point there seemed to be, to me at least, is that, and as we saw with a lot of the guests at the conference, Bitcoin is no longer a fringe experiment. It is a mainstream financial asset. And we'll actually talk a little bit about that with the course that Greg's put together for TAFE BTC. But notionally, don't panic buy Bitcoin. Understand what it is. Understand why it's valuable, why its fixed supply matters, why a deflationary currency is the bedrock and foundation upon which we can build our civilization and genuinely go and explore the firmament or the stars, depending on which way you go with that argument. Don't be afraid of Bitcoin. Go smash buy some Bitcoin, because that inflation data is rancid, to be quite honest with you. Bitcoin power projection. Did you catch Admiral Paparo basically echoing Mr. Jason Lowry's power projection software, thesis at the Senate Armed Services Committee hearing? I think it was earlier in the week, may have been late last week. Did you catch any of that?
Yeah, it's a cool little video. Like, it's worth you going on Twitter and digging it out and having a watch, because it's just a bit weird, like being in the Bitcoin space for a while and then seeing a video of a literal US general sit down and say, yes, we are running a Bitcoin node. Yes, we see the strategic value in Bitcoin. We're running a node. We're exploring. We're keeping an eye on things. It's wild. Like that is the reality today. So it's worth watching that video.
Yeah, he was pretty explicit too. Like, he was saying it is a thing. It is a valuable thing. We are taking it seriously. We are running a node. We're running multiple nodes. If you're not running a node, the US state defense is a better Bitcoiner than you are.
That's an indictment on you right now. If you're sitting out there, you're listening to this. You've been you've been in Bitcoin for how many years? And the US military is running a Bitcoin node before you. It's an indictment on you, listener.
Did you catch any of those comments there, Greg?
Yeah, I did. And it's really interesting, isn't it? Like, you guys have touched on, the conference and the feds, and a lot of Bitcoiners feel like this era is kind of the era of the suits, the institutional Bitcoin, don't they? It is wild, like Mike was saying, to hear about those from that structure running nodes. I think there's a lot of signal in that, love it or hate it. I feel like Bitcoin's in a really, really interesting space at the moment. I think price matters because, as we all know, price is what gets people interested. They, what's the saying? They come for the number, go up. They stay for the revolution. So I feel like it's a really interesting time in Bitcoin right now. And you touched on it before, DJ. Can't remember the expression that you used, but feels like something is going to happen soon. Whether that's an explosion in price, whether that's geopolitics scaring everyone into buying Bitcoin on HardBlock, of course.
Very good.
Yeah, I'm fascinated.
We didn't pay you to say that.
It'll be number go up, but it'll be gulags. We'll see what happens.
Just on that, I think there is a trigger that might cause exactly that, what you just hinted, which is Cynthia Lummis, one of the senators in the US. She's the one that put forward the was it the bill, the Bitcoin Treasury bill? So Trump's obviously done his executive order last year to establish a Bitcoin reserve, and there's kind of been crickets since then. No real details, no nothing. But then supposedly there's going to be a big announcement next week. Who knows what that means? But there is a video that I saw today of Senator Cynthia Lummis saying that President Trump supports her bill to purchase 1 million Bitcoin. And so that could be the catalyst that you're sort of alluding to, if they follow through with that. And again, how far can you trust a politician? Not very far. But, what would happen if the US turned around next week and says, yeah, we're going to buy 1 million Bitcoin? Like, what would happen? there's definitely not a million Bitcoin ready, sitting on exchanges ready to go. Like with all the institutional buying, the ETFs and that sort of thing, there are many days where that is buying more than the mined supply. So yeah, it'll be really interesting to see what happens if they let it rip with that decision.
I always think as well, Mike, in regards to this socialization and the movement of Bitcoin, that might be the case. They might come out and say, yep, we're loading up. And then what would that do to price? What would that do to the cultural awareness of Bitcoin adoption? But I also think, what would happen one day if Taylor Swift came out and started talking like a Bitcoiner and using all the terms? You know what I mean? Like, I think there is going to be a point where we sort of take it back a little bit off the institutions and it becomes more what it's supposed to be, peer-to-peer money, decentralized money. So
Yes, peer-to-peer electronic cash.
yeah, white paper.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I'll be here for it. Like it will kind of like it's just this sort of you kind of almost think it's inevitable. I mean, Elon had that quote back in like 21, 22 about in retrospect it was inevitable. It kind of fits like that. I wonder if the boffins, Mr. Jimmy Chalmers and his mates, are actually even like reading anything about Bitcoin and considering, like, the fact that the US is openly talking about it. Whether or not they do it is another thing. But surely there's got to be someone within those bureaucratic halls of sludge and molasses.
Well,
that
I've got a theory on that actually.
Like
I don't think that any of these talking heads, even like the general in the video, I don't think any of them have any clue about any of it. But what is true, what I do believe, is that there are Bitcoiners everywhere. Bitcoiners are everywhere. And they are kind of, they're feeling their way through the machinations of the old financial system and the old political systems. And like that general would have a Bitcoiner on his staff somewhere who has been like the guy that has given him what to say. He literally would have set up the node for them, would have been operating it for them and answering all their questions and then giving him the brief to read out on that day. And it would be the same for any of these big talking head politicians. I sincerely doubt that any of them truly sit down and understand the technologies. They're only concerned with getting reelected. Like, they're not learning about fundamental freedom technologies like Bitcoin. But their staff are going to be the occasional Bitcoiner in there. So that's definitely what we need to be doing. Like, if you're out there wondering, how can you help move things forward? How can you move the needle? Don't just go shitpost on Twitter. Like, go and join political parties. Go and get in, get into positions where you can have the ear of these folks that do, unfortunately, control the levers of power, and just wear your heart on your sleeve and tell them, this is a good thing. This is what we need for privacy and freedom in the digital age. All these sorts of talking points that Bitcoiners, rag on Twitter about, but, make it real by getting into a position where you can influence these people and literally write the report that they then read on media as a talking head. It's what you can do.
if you are a Bitcoiner and you do have a penchant for hanging around like low IQ, powerful people, yeah, absolutely go and sort of tap on their shoulder. There's clearly a few Bitcoiners in the French tax administration. I don't know what their equivalent is to the ATO, but just a little bit of dark news, and it's kind of important to just flag it nonetheless. But the Paris investigating chamber rejected an appeal for release Monday from a French tax administration employee who prosecutors accuse of selling confidential information about cryptocurrency investors to criminal organizations. So basically, we've got the accusation that it is that a tax official working in France has been offloading KYC data to suspected, criminals who are then leading a string of kidnaps, effectively based on this information. And as a Bitcoin-only exchange, we have to comply with the rules and regulations of the road. We don't like KYC at all, but we have to do it, and we must do it in order to stay in business. And we try and be as least burdensome as possible. In fact, Mike works incredibly hard to set up the protocols that mean that we don't have to do all of these biometric things. We don't have biometrics, do we, dude? No. So we work really hard to sort of make buying Bitcoin as easy as possible. And unfortunately, KYC is just the reality of this. But the reality is that it does lead to people being put in compromising positions, particularly people in positions of asymmetric knowledge or power that have access to this information that can then on-sell it to individuals. So being private it's not paranoia, it's personal security. And, you've got, I guess Bitcoin gives you powerful control over your money if you self-custody it, and which we strongly suggest you do, and we can help you to do that. But that control comes with a heck of a lot of responsibility. And not to put too fine a point on it, but if they had guard block, they probably wouldn't get the Bitcoin.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, France is a very unique case where there's just an extraordinarily high rate of people getting like physically attacked for their Bitcoin and crypto in France. And it does stem from this tax person that leaked a bunch of information out to criminal entities that go after people. But yeah, that data only exists because of KYC and these sorts of things that are forced upon Bitcoin and crypto businesses out there. And, it could happen again. Like France is, in theory, in principle, a first world country, and yet their rates of physical attacks for this sort of thing are really high. It's not much of a stretch to see that happening in other countries more often. And yeah, it's enabled by these egregious requirements to identify and track people, not just for tax. This case in France was particularly around tax. And, just to be clear, like HardBlock, we don't offer up any information to the tax authorities. We don't. It's on you to manage your tax affairs. But the thing that's more likely to happen in Australia is the surveillance aspect. So Australia is probably far ahead of France in terms of financial surveillance, particularly with a lot of the rules being rolled out this year from the financial regulator AUSTRAC and some additional requirements by ASIC. But basically, it's not much of a stretch to believe that a similar situation here where a government employee under one of these businesses, not business entities, government entities, decides to take some kickbacks in the form of selling customer data, surveillance data of Australians and their financial activities out to criminal elements. And when you see what our politicians are doing, and as it becomes clearer that our politicians themselves are happily engaged in corruption and embezzlement of funds, taxpayer funds for different things. Oh, and just a funny side note. I was telling someone about this new CGT discount removal thing that they're planning, which might have impact on the value of properties as people start to unload them. If you've been a keen watcher of MPs, there's a number of MPs, including our Prime Minister, that have been offloading investment properties for a few years now, well in advance of this budget being dropped, which is going to potentially cause a flood of boomers trying to offload their properties.
What are you suggesting, Mark?
What am I suggesting? Oh, nothing untoward. You can trust our leaders. They're fine, perfectly fine. But anyway, I digress. It's not out of the imagination that a similar leak to what happened in France of sensitive customer data could happen again, could happen here. And so people do need to be taking steps to take their security seriously. There's a lot of options out there. There's a lot of things you need to look at. Yes, it does take time. Yes, it is stressful. But you got to do it. You got to protect yourself. You got to protect your family, protect your wealth. Consider your security setup. Consider your cybersecurity setup. And as DJ mentioned, we've got Guard Block, which we're starting to roll out now, which might help you. So definitely check it out. And maybe we'll throw a link in the show notes if you want to amp up your security.
Yeah, I will actually put that link in the show notes because we do have an early adopter offer. So we're in the process of rolling this out. We're going to talk about it a lot actually at the upcoming Bush Bash in Byron Bay. But we have an early adopter offer which is available now. until the end of May. You get 12 months free, and then it's 0.1% annually for 5 years, which is 50% off the standard pricing. I'll put all of that information in the show notes, and there's actually an article that we've got up on the blog, Secure Bitcoin Custody, that expects the unexpected. So that is an unexpected attack. You know, a lot of people consider their Bitcoin security from hackers and malware, phishing attempts, exchange failures, these sorts of things. But one of the most uncomfortable realities is actually that not all the attacks happen online. Some, in fact, an increasing amount happen in the physical world through these types of things: coercion, threats, violence, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, one of the reasons we built HardBlock is so that you are protected from those moments that you don't expect and you don't see coming, which is, you know, we'll check it out. We'll chuck it in the show notes. I want to talk a little bit briefly before we let's just screw it. Snowy Hydro 2.0, they're a bunch of wasteful bastards. They originally projected $2 billion, and that's blown out to $42 billion. Let's just leave it at that. They're just such, it's so easy to spend other people's money, isn't it? Just honestly, far out. Okay. I don't want to end the show on a sour or bad note. I'm going to pivot to TAFE BTC. That's why we got Greg here in the first place. He reached out to us a couple of weeks ago, and it's kind of blown my mind, man. You've created this short course through TAFE Victoria.
Chisholm TAFE, yep.
Chisholm TAFE, right. And it basically takes people through everything they need to know about Bitcoin. It's kind of like the Bitcoin standard, but in a classroom.
Yeah, that's the highest compliment that I've received to liken me to the great work that Safe did with the Bitcoin standard. But yeah, guys, to put it not bluntly, but sort of overtly, I'm on a mission to try and educate as many as I can with my limited and scarce time here on Earth in regards to the Orange Way. So, yeah, I work for Chisholm, and we developed a short course last year on Bitcoin. It was a 5-week course, ran for 3 hours per week, so 15 hours in total. And I'd love to, of course, there'll be some hurdles along the way, but I'd love to develop, with Chisholm's help, Australia's first and only nationally accredited Bitcoin training package. So your Victorian listeners will know what Chisholm is, but we're a large training provider down in the southeast. We've also got some international presence as well. But yeah, I'd like to develop, a diploma in Bitcoin and a certificate in Bitcoin, which I humbly think is a bit of a big deal. My viewpoint is everyone eventually, they'll want to be educated in Bitcoin. When it comes to the time where they're like, hey, I don't want to be paid in Aussie dollary dues. I want my job to pay me in Bitcoin. And maybe I'll start looking at paying off my mortgage, for example, in Bitcoin and spending in Bitcoin. So when that time comes, I don't believe it's an if, but I'd like to think it's a when. I want to position Chisholm, and it's not even necessarily about them, to be honest. Education is my passion. So to fill you guys in, DJ and Mike, I've been a high school and primary school teacher for 15, 16 years now, and now I teach adults and work in the commercial division at Chisholm. But I think education is the real onboarding. I don't think there necessarily is a killer app or even a Taylor Swift moment like I mentioned before. I think it's just quality, consistent education. As you guys both know, it is it is a hard task trying to orange pill people. So I do believe education is the real onboarding, and I just want to play my role, whether that be on a podcast with you guys, whether that be at the next family barbecue, as much as my family and friends are sick of hearing about Bitcoin. I just want to play my role. It's very meaningful to me, Bitcoin. It's a lot more than the number go up, so to speak. So yeah, just trying to play my role as best I can.
Great.
Yeah, Bitcoin education is very difficult notoriously, because at the moment I think you have to have an enormous amount of internal will to want to, you have some sort of catalyst, whatever that is, if it's saving in better money, or buying a house, or I don't know, not being stolen from via the inflation tax, whatever your jam is. But it's about trying to find what works. And there's plenty of touch points here of Bitcoin from a gaming perspective. People might find that and be curious just to play the game, and then realize that, it's about Bitcoin. Obviously, we've got our own learn.hardblock.com.au webpage that we try and keep up to date. And we have, 21 lessons, basics, super easy to digest, but it's about trying to transmit that into real life. And, one of the strategies that we have here is trying to do those sorts of real life meat-based things, which is why we send out copies of our Easy Bitcoin book, or hard cards, or go to the meetups, go to the bush bashes, and try not to, make it too shilly for HardBlock, but just to try and be there as to support people, to try and give them resources to understand Bitcoin. I would imagine that someone enrolling in this wouldn't necessarily describe themselves as an autodidact, as most Bitcoiners, I think, are. They kind of want that, cool, you take care of it, and I'll show up for 3 hours a week, and hopefully at the end of it, you'll have sparked some joy, and I can go off and investigate deeper on my own.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the first cohort we ran, for example, there was a range of different types of people there from different backgrounds, and they were there for different incentive based reasons. But it's look, I've taught preps trying to read, I've taught year 10s science, and teaching Bitcoin is the hardest subject matter, because where do you start? Do you start with the history of money? Do you look at the technology side of things? Where do you jump in? So
go straight into shit posting, how to shit post on Twitter. That's where you start.
All that, yeah.
So what's the ideal person that you want to go through this course?
Just anyone curious, and anyone with that feeling inside that I think more and more people are increasingly having, that there's just something not quite right with the world. And as we know, that's because the money is broken. And the system that surrounds that money, like the political system, is completely broken. So anyone who's curious about the history and future of money, we'd love to have you along. But anyone, Mike, whether it be someone thinking about the next phase of their life in retirement, or a 10-year-old kid, or maybe not a 10-year-old kid, but you know what I'm trying to say. Anyone who's curious about money and where
so I
things.
suppose it's tricky, as you say, because there's so many different directions you could go in. Like, do you lean more into the economic side of things, and maybe do you then introduce Austrian economics and talk about the origin of money, or do you go more into software and open source development and the cypherpunk nature and origin of Bitcoin? Or do you talk about the future and what this means for future commerce? Like, there's so many different directions you can go in. So it's a hard job you've given yourself.
Yeah, and just on that, and teaching and learning is what I've done for near on 2 decades. So I thought about the structure of the curriculum, so to speak, and how I would deliver it, and I kind of came up with a bit of a unique way of doing it. I call it voting with their hash power. So you've got your classroom full of students, and we introduce what the course is going to be, and then I let them take me where they want to go. So if they vote on their phones that I want to learn what Bitcoin is straight away, we'll go there, but then they might vote in the next section down, okay, well, what actually is the history of money? What is a node? What does UTXO mean? So it's a non-linear way of teaching, which I'm really excited by. But it's a very much a choose your own adventure learning. My philosophy is that everyone has a path to understanding Bitcoin, but everyone's path is different. So I go with the crowd, whichever they vote with. I call it hash power, and I know you guys know what that is, but I loosely explain that before I get into the mining section of the curriculum. But yeah, I think everyone has a path to understanding but finding and identifying that path, that's the secret sauce. Yeah.
And what about practical aspects?
Yeah, I was about to ask that. Yeah, do you like, okay, we're gonna, on this lesson we're literally gonna set up a node and this is how you connect to it, set up a wallet, any practical stuff like that?
Yeah, we do. So like I bring in my little bit axe, of course, and I
Nice.
show them this is what it looks like. This is how mining works. And not to get too sidetracked, guys, but I'm just endlessly fascinated by the world of turning abundant or stranded energy into money and literally creating your own money instead of getting paid by the man. I could talk about mining all day, to be honest, but yeah, we get right in there. I talk about what a node is. I talk about wallets, hot wallets, cold wallets. I try and show them as best I can. I did use it as an opportunity to shill knots and not Bitcoin Core. Don't know where you guys stand on that, but I added in my 2 cents there. So yeah, we get right into the weeds. We go through it all. As I said, it's a 15-hour course, although we do have different streams that we're working on. We're working on a Bitcoin in 60 minutes. We're working on a 2-day workshop that we could hopefully deliver to businesses as well. But yeah, we get right into the weeds because you can't teach this thing in an elevator pitch, can you? You just can't. Where do you start? So yeah.
All right, and are you accepting course fees in Bitcoin?
We're not there yet. Hopefully,
that's going to be an insurmountable task dealing with a government institution, because TAFE is technically government, right?
Definitely. Yep.
Yeah.
We're a public
like
sector, not for profit. So yeah.
You had to go through all the hoops for that as well to get this signed off.
Chisholm were pretty good with the compliance process. So when I started working with Chisholm last year, DJ, I threw this out there. Hey guys, I mean, I was already orange pilled by that stage, and I'm like, how can I weasel Bitcoin into the to the TAFE sector? I threw it out there, and because it's a short course, DJ, so it's a non-accredited course at this stage, the compliance process and jumping through the hoops everyone was great. Everyone was really open to it, which, to be honest, surprised me a little bit. But if we went down the path of accreditation, so developing a diploma in Bitcoin, a certificate in Bitcoin, whatever it might be, that's going to be more hoop jumping and more compliance. But when there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah, the white elephant in the room here is that all of this is taking place in the state of Victoria, the once great state of Victoria. It's had a rough trot over the last 6-7 years, but that's the thing I think that surprised me the most. I would expect something like this to come out of Queensland first, which is they're not as what are they? What does Tim call them? Wiz? He calls them Southern Socialists down there in Victoria. But yes, it's interesting. So once it gets accreditation and becomes a little bit more serious, I guess it will pass through a bit more molasses, and you'll have to do a little bit more paperwork, perhaps.
That'd be fair to say, and it's certainly not a foregone conclusion, DJ. It's more of an if. I desperately want to. Like I said before, guys, I want to play my role in whether you call it hyper Bitcoinization or whether you call it living on a Bitcoin standard or orange pilling 8 billion people, however you want to express it. I want to play my role, but if we did go down that path and there was demand, which I think there will be in time, even if we're not quite there yet with the masses. Some hoop jumping to do, but like I said, fingers crossed, eh?
Well, the thing that's going to drive more attention to accreditations and course requirement, demand will be off the back. Even though I complain about it every other day, they're bringing the AFSL requirement for Bitcoin and crypto businesses in Australia, and all these extra regulatory rules, which are finally going to make banks maybe a bit more comfortable in dealing with people's demand for Bitcoin and crypto. And that will spur more just like general acceptance and then a general demand to understand the thing, and hence a demand for courses like this, to give a proper, like a piece of paper which says, I understand this thing, I am in a position to advise on it in whatever business or industry that I'm in.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, like I was saying, I'd like to think everyone's going to need to understand it at some point. How long it takes, I think about it every day. I'm sure you guys too. Like, when is this going to happen? Feels like slow progress, doesn't it? Sometimes, but like I said, price as much as we know it's not necessarily about the price. We know it's about the development on the protocol stack. Price plays its role. Socialization plays its role. Geopolitics plays its role. Look at what's going on, overseas, in the UK with digital identity, like you guys were talking about before. So I think everyone's going to find a path to wanting and needing to educate themselves about Bitcoin. I doubt they'll all come to Chisholm Institute down in cold Victoria to do that. But I just want to do what I can in my limited finite time here on Earth. So
that's awesome. Can I ask, with some of the cohort, do you do a transaction with them on chain, Lightning, whatever? Do they get to see? Because for me, that's like the tangible thing. That's when, I'll never forget, I was trying to orange pill a mate and I was like, all right, cool. Just download this wallet and let me just send you some Bitcoin. And we did that. And he was like, but I didn't put an email in. And I was like, you don't have to. But like, how do they know? What? And I was like, no, this is the beautiful thing. It's just like me handing you a tenner. Like, it's just peer to peer. And he's like, couldn't believe it.
Yeah, we didn't originally, and full disclosure, like I remember the first time I ran the course, I was a little bit like, oh God, what if something goes wrong? What if my internet cuts out or something like that? But I think that's really important, DJ. You feel it, don't you? When you let's say you make an on-chain transaction and you look it up on mempool.space or whatever block explorer you want to use, that emotes something within you. And I never forget the first time I made a Lightning payment, I'm like, oof, that, like I felt it. I hope that doesn't sound too crazy, but I felt it. So yeah, that's something I'd certainly be looking to add in the future. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
What
Hand,
you could
heart,
do,
and head.
What you could do for maybe the next run out is you do almost a bit of role playing. This is like you're telling the story, and it's like maybe you've got two of the students, and they're like maybe one runs a bit, or maybe they both run a business in the scenario. But you start at like prehistoric times, and they got to work it out using shells, and then they got to work it out using gold coins, cash, and then you have a period where it's like, okay, now work it out using the fiat system right now, and they're like, well. Okay, well, I need a point of sale terminal from Commonwealth Bank. I need your bank details. Do this sort of thing. It's like, well, hang on, we can't do this in this classroom. We physically can't do this value transfer with the tools that you've got. You could do it with coins. You could do it with shells. But then with Bitcoin, you just download a Bitcoin app and a Bitcoin wallet and send your value straight away. Off you go. There's no fuck around. Like there was previously in prehistoric times, there was no fuck around. Just hand me your shells. No third party needed. Going back to
peer-to-peer electronic cash, eh?
Well, Greg, thank you so much for jumping on. I'll put some links to Chisholm Bitcoin Education, the what do you call it? Bitcoin, everything you need to know about the future of our money. I'll make sure that link to that gets into the show notes for anybody that is interested. You might be an experienced Bitcoiner, but you might know someone that might value doing an in-person course. And it seems to me like Greg's got a sufficient amount of experience and knowledge to pass on. And it's awesome to see, quite frankly, Bitcoin education in Australia. That's how we increase the adoption. And price is cool, but you still got to understand what you're holding and how to use it and how to custody it and all those sorts of things. I would just end the show by saying thank you to my co-host Mike for jumping on again and recording episode 111 of the Australian Bitcoin podcast, and also our special guest Greg from TAFE BTC. I'm just going to run with that.
Sure, let's go with
and in the wise words of Mr. Tim Draper, you should be scared if you don't own Bitcoin. So go smash buy some Bitcoin on HardBlock right now. Thanks, gentlemen.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.